I want to introduce you to our panel moderator today. It's my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Nancy Todd. She is one of the few legislators who served the full 8 years in the Colorado House and 8 years in the Colorado Senate. She was Senate President Pro Tem during her final term. A champion of public education, her 16-year legislative career was highlighted by her work to improve our entire education system from PK to higher ed. And during her tenure, Nancy held leadership positions in several national legislative organizations. She was honored for her work by the United Veterans Coalition, the Colorado Auto Dealers Association, the Community College System, the Colorado Association of School Boards, and the Colorado Student Leaders Institute. She was also named Woman of the Year by the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. Prior to her legislative career, Nancy was a professional educator for 25 years in the Cherry Creek School District 5. Nancy received her bachelor's degree in education from the University of Kansas in 1970 and her master's degree in reading from the University of Northern Colorado in 1990. In 2013, she was inducted into the Lawrence, Kansas High School Hall of Honor, joining her father, Dr. Carl Knox, former superintendent of schools. They are the only father and daughter to hold this honor. I always get a little sort of choked up when I introduce Nancy because she was my office mate and my mentor when I was elected in 2008, and she has become a dear, dear friend. And I'm sure she won't mind me telling you that she's also a former Miss Kansas. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Sue. And as I'm going back and forth, in all honesty and candor, my Jayhawks are playing Iowa State as we speak. And so my attention has been divided back and forth between behavioral health, mental health, and yelling at the Jayhawks. So I am delighted to be here today. I think the topic that we are addressing and what we have already heard from Summer this morning has been absolutely profound. And I am so proud of this panel that we are going to be able to hear from today. I'm going to go through and just introduce each person as they are ready to speak. And I believe Representative Michelson-Janae is still struggling to get on. Am I correct?
So I think she is on now.
She is on now. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, then we'll just start right off the top with Daphna. Representative Daphna Michelson-Janae was elected to her 4th term in the Colorado House of Representatives in November 2022. She represents the northern Denver metro area, and I believe it's House District 32. I can't remember if that changed, but that's the district that she represents now. Representative Michelson-Janae's legislative work primarily focuses on youth, particularly regarding foster care, mental health, and health care access. Her championship has been unrivaled. She has been a diehard champion for our youth in Colorado. Prior to her work in the legislature, Representative Michelson-Janae spent a year traveling to all 50 states in search of ordinary people doing extraordinary things to solve problems in their communities. She chronicled her experiences in her book. It Takes a Little Crazy to Make a Difference is the name of her book, and which won the social change category of the International Book Awards. Her second book, which is also very profound and very meaningful, Peanuts Legacy, details the loss of the pregnancy of her son at 20 weeks and her journey through her grief. Peanuts Legacy was a finalist in the International Book Awards. And again, if you listen to her heart as well as her message, you will learn so much of the depth of her grief and turn to action. After the 50-state project, Representative Michelson-Jeannet and her husband, Michael, co-founded the Journey Institute, which trains organizations and individuals in community problem solving and next level team building. Representative Michelson-Jeannet earned her MBA from the University of Denver, Daniels College of Business, and her bachelor's degree from the Yeshiva University Stern College for Women. We are delighted to have you with us here today, Daphna, and we know after a tough week under the Gold Dome to give of your time and your energy and your expertise and your heart. We welcome you, and we are thrilled to be able to hear from you. And then when you finish, we will move on to Dr. Tony Poole.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. As always, I love seeing you, Representatives Todd and Ryden. It's an honor to be with you this morning. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm alone in the house and my dogs are barking. So they're a little barky today. So hopefully they'll calm down. I'll continue snapping to get them to calm down, but you might hear the dogs in the background. So I'm Daphna Michelson-Jeannet, and Nancy was telling you a little bit about my story by reading my bio, but I'll tell you the answer to the question, why did I run for office? Because I think that connects well with the behavioral health topic of the day. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 28 and he's in the Marine Corps, married with a child. So I'm the youngest grandmother you ever saw in your life. And I have a daughter who is 22 and just graduated from CSU. And then I have a son, Eitan, who is 20, and he struggles mightily in life. And when he was 9 years old, he attempted suicide at school. He was frustrated. We had been trying to get him help. We couldn't figure out what was wrong. He was gifted and he had learning disabilities, and it was a mess. And as we were trying to help him get the help that he needed, somebody suggested that we sue Denver Public Schools, and that Denver Public Schools was violating my son's civil rights. Well, we went through a little bit of that process and it made me physically ill. I couldn't stomach the idea of suing Denver Public Schools when I knew that money in our schools is very, very tight and our teachers aren't paid well. And these are things that I was familiar with. So I didn't want to sue the school. So meanwhile, I go to the grocery store one day. My husband was making crepes and ran out of milk. So I run to the store to get milk because yay, crepes. And the cashier behind the register was a city councilor, Steve Douglas. And he says to me, Daphna, I need you to run for office. And I said, Steve, I'm wearing my pajamas. And he said, I don't care if you're wearing your pajamas. I need you to run for office. And it started this whole slew of conversations that ended up with me running for and winning state representative of what was then House District 30 and is now House District 32. So you got that right, Representative Todd, Senator Todd. So I ran for office believing and thinking I can do something to help the children that are like my son, even though I wasn't able to help my son. And I wasn't able to help my son. He did not have a good education. We ultimately sent him away to boarding school in Ohio. And he went there for 4 years. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, was send away my 14-year-old. And he's back now. He started working at Amazon yesterday. College has been a nightmare. He's done 2.5 years of college and garnered 0 credits. So we're learning how to work along with him and get him on the right track. But he was and is my inspiration every single day. And some of the pieces of legislation that I've brought forward to address that particular issue, one is the K-5 Social and Emotional Health Act. My son was not identified until after he attempted suicide, that he was on the autism spectrum, or that he was significantly learning disabled. And he had been through kindergarten, 5th grade, all of the problems that we have, he had always had. He was somewhat easy to identify, because at one point a teacher said, yeah, a student came in and evaluated him and said he's twice exceptional. And it was kind of like an offhanded comment, and I didn't pay any attention to it and continued on with my day. And until he attempted suicide, and we did educational testing and all the other types of testing that one does, that we learned his disabilities. So the K-5 Social and Emotional Health Act is a program to bring a team of school therapists. So it's school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers, any one of those could qualify, to work with a particular grade and follow that grade from kindergarten through 5th grade, and work uniquely with that group, so that they can identify early what are some of the problems and the challenges, and get help right there in the classroom. So that was my first bid to, say, okay, this is going to help my son, would have helped my son. The second is the I Matter program. I Matter is a free program for school-aged youth in Colorado. So any kid in Colorado who wants therapy can have it for free through imattercolorado.org. We removed all barriers to entry. We removed insurance barriers. We removed network barriers just by creating this program of free therapy for our youth. And over 5,000 youth have used the program so far, and we've been used in every county but 5. So we're getting out there to the rural states, the rural parts of our state, and the areas where people may not be able to get therapy. And another thing that I worked on was the age of consent. And this is one that, some people agree with me on and some people disagree with me on, and that's okay. But the age of consent in Colorado is now 12 years old. Let me tell you why. Every time my son went to therapy, I got a call that evening with everything he said. And I would go to him as mom and say, okay, so let's talk about these things that are bothering you. And he was so frustrated that we had all of the information of everything he said that he stopped saying anything in therapy. One time he went to therapy and the therapist said, I'll pay you $1,000 to talk. And he said, there, I talked, now give me $1,000. And it was not, we didn't go back to that therapist. Let's just say that. So I focus around therapy and I focus around youth, and hopefully through my efforts, we'll be able to help some more kids like mine. That's my story.
Thank you so much, Daphna. And I know that your advocacy for youth stems from your own personal experience, but it also goes well beyond to all youth in Colorado. And I've heard you, I've seen you, I've watched you in action, and your advocacy can never be thanked enough. For those children who are in homes that perhaps their parents are not as engaged and don't know where to turn. And so, again, I know we'll open up and we'll hear some more questions as we go along, but I will thank you now, and we'll move on to Tony. So Dr. Tony Poole, let me tell you a little bit about him. I've known him for quite some time as a teacher and as an administrator in Cherry Creek, and had the privilege of working with his brother as a fellow teacher who was one of the finest English language arts teachers I ever worked with. So Dr. Tony Poole is a Colorado native who grew up in Inglewood and attended college at the University of Northern Colorado. Dr. Poole started his education career as a social studies teacher at Prairie Middle School in the Cherry Creek School District in 1989. That sounds like a long time ago, but it's not that long ago. Over the past 34 years, he has served as a teacher, principal, and district level administrator. In 2019, he became the first assistant superintendent of spatial populations in the Cherry Creek School District, overseeing the departments of special education, gifted and talented, English language learners, preschool, and 504 manifestations. His deep experiences with the mental health crisis facing adolescents in Colorado led Dr. Poole to propose a first of its kind therapeutic level day treatment facilities built and run by the school district. Cherry Creek is partnering with the CU School of Psychiatry and Children's Hospital to provide the therapeutic interventions at the facility, bringing three powerful Colorado organizations together to address the continued mental health crisis facing our youth. And I am just so excited and thrilled to see this take place right here in Aurora and Cherry Creek, and Tony, your leadership. So we're anxious to learn more about how this is working and your impact on helping our youth.
Well, thank you. It's what an honor to be introduced by Senator Todd, a true friend of education, and I've always very much appreciated you, Senator Todd, so thank you. And Representative Michelson Janae, I haven't met you, but your story, oh boy, did it touched my heart, because I hear it too much. We hear those stories far too often, especially when it comes to students who are gifted or twice exceptional. A lot of folks don't realize that students and adults who are gifted or twice exceptional commit suicide at a far, far higher rate than the rest of the population. And twice exceptionality, to be the parent of a kiddo who's twice exceptional is a true challenge, because the overexcitabilities, the giftedness, the masking of disability and giftedness is very, very difficult. It's very difficult in education, and it's very difficult as a parent. So much respect to you and to your work. I think everything that you said that you've done is fantastic. So thank you. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'll take you through a quick PowerPoint that describes just exactly what we're doing here in Cherry Creek. And I'll try to go quickly through this. All right. Get my laser pointer on here. I didn't even know I could do that until the other day. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Traverse Academy. It's a partnership between the Cherry Creek School District and Children's Hospital and the CU School of Psychiatry. And we believe it's very unique, and it will be the first of its kind in the country. So this is a need born of crisis. And I feel like after listening to the introductions that I'm now preaching to the choir, and I appreciate that. This is nothing new probably to many of you. You know, according to Mental Health America, across 7 statistical measures of adolescent mental health, Colorado ranks 42nd in the nation for mental health care for kids. And hopefully, you know, efforts like the ones that Representative Michelson Janae have made will put us in a better place for that. But adolescent and adult mental health programs and services in Colorado have declined significantly over the last 20 years due to budget cuts and other issues. This crisis predates COVID. It's very trendy to say, oh, COVID did this, COVID did this. No, we were in crisis before COVID. In the last 10 years alone, viable Cherry Creek School District placement options for adolescents who are in mental health crisis have gone from 77 to 16. It had gone from 77 to 36 before COVID. And now, as of today, it's down to 16 viable placement options, and that's for every school district in the entire metro area, hundreds of thousands of kids. In any given year, Cherry Creek sends 50 to 100 students to day treatment facilities at a cost of 1.25 to 3 million if we can find the spots. Suicide risk assessments in Cherry Creek and associated mental health needs have increased steadily over the last 5 to 10 years, leading to a mental health employee group who are in a constant state of crisis. And this is a need born of scarcity. At any point in time, we have an active waiting list of 5 to 15 to honestly 20 students in mental health crisis. These are students with significant mental health issues, students who are suicidal, students who need day treatment placements and cannot get one due to the lack of spots in facilities or insurance barriers. We have no options in Cherry Creek who need a placement for kids who need a placement and cannot get one. We have no options for students who are in a placement and who are being discharged due to insurance disputes, negotiated medical necessity, or lack of parental participation. These students are simply discharged and sent back to the schools where they walk our hallways in crisis. And we have no options for students who need a level of support somewhere between school and day treatment when their insurance company decides that day treatment is done, or when they're released due to the insurance company deciding there's no longer medical necessity. So because of that crisis, and because of a comment that quite honestly was thrown my way in 2019, I was complaining loudly about the lack of day treatment spots, and a comment was made to me, well, if you want day treatment spots, maybe you should build your own. And I thought, okay, let's try that. So I threw it on the bond package. I did not honestly think it would go anywhere. It was a crazy idea and one I had just kind of thought up. And in our pre-polling, it polled at #1 of the issues that our voters wanted to see on the bond. And then in November of 2020, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of a shutdown, when our kids were remote, I didn't think the bond would even pass, to be quite honest with you. But our voters overwhelmingly supported the bond question with 70% saying yes, which was the highest yes vote on a bond we had ever had in the history of the Cherry Creek School District. And the day treatment facility was a central component of that proposal. So from dreams to reality, in spring of 2020, I created an executive committee because once it passed, I thought, oh, wow, I'm building a day treatment facility and I'm an educator. I don't know anything about day treatment facilities. So I pulled together a group of about 25 staff members in Cherry Creek who had experience working in day treatment facilities. And it was just a question. If you could build it and make it perfect, if you could build the dream facility, what would it be? What would it look like? How would it work? And what came through were two things. One, we wanted it to be warm, inviting, completely non-institutional. We wanted it to have plenty of natural light and a ton of usable outdoor space, because we live in Colorado where even in the middle of February, I can look out the window here and it's a beautiful day and we can be outside, and that's good for kids. It's good for mental health. We also wanted to create a tiered approach to our treatment and education based on acuity level of the student, which we felt was unique, because many times students are released from day treatment and they are simply not ready to go back to school. What we wanted to do was create a facility that had 3 levels of treatment. One level where students who are in severe crisis could be, and they could receive a heavier amount of individual and group therapy, and maybe not as much education, to be honest, until they're ready. They're not ready to access their education when they're in severe crisis. And so we wanted them to have the ability to get intensive individual and group therapy and a little education when they can. When they're ready, then we want to step them down to what we call our moderate level, where there would be a little less therapy and a little more education as we ease them back in. And then the unique piece that we feel we're building into this facility is a transitional wing that looks a little bit more like school, where the rest of the building has curved walls, and it's intentionally made to not feel like a school or a hospital. This wing looks a little more like a school. It's got a straight hallway, it's got a square classroom, it's got some lockers in it, and we can work to desensitize kids to getting back into that regular classroom environment. And we can transition them back to their homeschool part-time, and then have them come back to our transitional wing half days or as they need to check in with their therapists and get help. We feel that's very unique. We haven't found anything like that in the rest of the country either. So then we partnered with MOA Architects and our executive committee to design a facility based on the things we wanted. And that's what we did. So this is what we're building. This is Traverse Academy. I hope you can see my little red laser pointer. This is the main entrance right here. When you walk in the main entrance, it actually is a coffee shop. So it will not feel like a school or certainly a day treatment facility. Little coffee counter right here. And then it's open. There's a beautiful wall of windows here that'll be open into a courtyard with a gorgeous little seating area out here. It's not a little seating area, it's a big seating area. It's really nice. And then we have 2 family therapy rooms here in the back of our coffee shop, where actually we can either do family therapy or we can do intake. As you move off to the right here, we have it's a half-size gymnasium, but we'll actually have a yoga area. We'll have a basketball hoop in there. And then I'm really excited about the fact that we're going to have a full-sized climbing wall in there. So students will be able to use a bouldering, traversing, and a climbing wall with full height. As you go out of the gym, you actually walk into the transitional wing right here. You can see that it's a little straighter. There's the lockers right there. It still has a focus room. That's an individual therapy room in case that's needed. But then our classroom is right here. And then we have a group therapy room as well. And then a work therapy room for our clinicians and teachers. As you go out and back through the main entrance, you come into the rest of the facility. And on the main level is where we actually have our severe wing. We're looking at treating students in 4th grade through 12th grade. And so we have 2 pods to do that in the severe wing. One pod will hold students in 4th through 8th grade, and the other one will hold students in 8th through 12th grade. Because if you know 8th graders, they can look and act like 4th graders, or they can look and act like they're 30. So they'll go depending on maturity and need. So as you go into that severe wing, you can see it's very curved. It'll be very comfortable. We have a nook in these classrooms where kids will be able to kind of hide out in a little space. They'll still be in line of sight, but it's a very comfortable little seating area with adjustable lighting that kids can make different colors and just feel very comfortable with that. It's a ton of natural light and views. And then we have, of course, the group therapy room here and a focus room here and a focus room here. So 2 individual therapy rooms and 1 group therapy room. We're looking at a maximum of probably 8 to 10 students per pod. So this is a very good size. There's a workroom right here, and it connects into the other severe pod, which is a mirror image with the focus rooms, the group therapy room, and nooks and all of those features. And then as you come back out here, we have a dining hall, and we will have a little kitchen that will serve the kids lunch and breakfast. And then as you go back, there is there are 2 classrooms that are innovation classrooms. So we have an innovation wet classroom, which would be like an art room or a paint splatter room. It's got a kiln in the back here for art projects. That's our wet innovation. And then right next to it, we have a dry innovation room where kids can do robotics and other projects. And then you go back into the cafe and you go up the grand staircase here and you get upstairs. And when you come upstairs, we actually, you come up the stairs here. There are actually 2 flex classrooms. That's where we'll teach language arts, social studies, math, science. You'll notice that unlike a normal school, teachers will not have their own classroom. This facility wasn't built for teachers. This facility was built for kids. And so kids will own these classrooms, not teachers. Teachers will rotate in and out of them. So the administrative offices are back in here, pretty hidden away. And that's intentional in how we wanted it. So we have administrative offices back in here and a conference room. We have a nurse's office right here, a workroom. And then as you go across the hall, it's a mirror image to what was down below. But this is the moderate wing, and it's built on the same structure. It's got the home base, the nooks, the focus rooms, the group therapy rooms, the office that connects, and then it connects to the other side of the moderate wing. And then as you move back through the facility to the other side, this is the transitional wing for 8th through 12th graders upstairs. And that is the facility as it's drawn. Outside, I love the outside. I'm really excited about it. Outside, we have a labyrinth. We have a walking labyrinth where kids will be able to go and walk with their therapist and meditate. It connects to a walking path that goes all the way around the building. There's an outdoor boulder climbing feature. There's a basketball area. And then you move around to our outdoor seating area. This is actually, a little courtyard, and that's what you would see through the cafe right here. And this is another seating area. And then we have that same thing in the next courtyard. And then we actually have an outdoor amphitheater classroom built onto the other side of the building here. So you can see that kids will really be able to access some really cool features, not only in the building, but outside of the building as well. We partnered with Franz and Pittman, our general contractors, and they have been outstanding. And here is our building coming to life. This is that main entrance coffee shop right here. These will be the administrative offices up here and our gym to the right. That's a great aerial drone photo of the whole facility with the gymnasium. And you can see that cement truck right to the right of the main entrance there. This is the back of the building. You can see how the wings will work. Here's the transitional wing right here. And then down here is the severe, and up here is the moderate. You can see also there's a giant hole right back here that's going to be our amphitheater. You can see it much better on this shot right here. There's the amphitheater right there. And these are just a few shots of how it will look when it's done. Those are the nooks I was talking about that kids will be able to adjust the lighting and hang out in. This is our cafe, our coffee shop. Here's our entrance with the coffee shop. And then down here is our yoga studio and the gym with the climbing wall. The latest news, our name, we just recently named it Traverse Academy in a nod to the mountain climbing term and the great traverses that you can do here in Colorado across our peaks. We have a principal that we hired. I'm very excited about that, to have some help. Her name is Kim Avalos. She's been a special educator and administrator in Cherry Creek for a long time. Kim's a good friend, and she'll be a fantastic principal for this facility. We have our clinical partnership with Children's Hospital and the CU School of Psychiatry that we're incredibly excited about. Thank goodness we got some extra funding. I had a $1.5 million shortfall because by the time we got the bond passed, from planning to passing to getting ready, Supply chain issues had put me $1.5 million behind. I was going to have to cut everything that was cool in this facility. I was going to have to cut the climbing wall, all of the outdoor features, a lot of the gorgeous features inside that make it warm and comforting, and it was all going to have to go away. But I applied for a grant, some funding through Representative Crow and Senator Hickenlooper's offices under the congressional spending bill that passed right at the end of December, and I got $1.5 additional million, and it saved all of the really cool features for this facility. How can you help? I can tell you how you all can help me and help Cherry Creek and help kids. We are now in the midst of regulatory tangle time. Between CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, CDE, Colorado Department of Education, HCPUF, the health, I don't know what it is. I don't know what HCPUF is. It's health stuff. I can't keep all my acronyms straight. The Colorado Department of Human Services and the new Behavioral Health Administration, I am caught in a tangle of regulations, and there's concerns around HIPAA, and there's concerns around who owns the building, and can children's do therapy there? And I need help. I need help untangling these regulations. I need these groups to see the beauty of this project and how important it is for kids, and the fact that this can be a model for school districts around the state and around the country. And I need help to get it open and get it to work. And I need creative thinking, not, well, these are our regulations. That's what we're struggling with right now, to be quite honest. We got a lot of buzz coming around this. You'll be able to see, oh geez, it was just 2 weeks ago. I did an interview, and so did our superintendent, Chris Smith, with CBS National News. There should be an 8-minute segment on CBS. That's forever in today's news. 8 minutes. That's like, wow, it's almost a documentary. But an 8-minute segment coming up. It should be within the next 2 weeks on CBS Nightly News. We've had previous media coverage from the Aurora Sentinel, Channel 4, Channel 7, and a great article in Education Weekly that addresses all of the things Cherry Creek is doing to help our students who are in crisis, including a great conversation in that article around the facility. And then I have school districts from Pueblo, Colorado, Minnesota, Ohio. I've been doing a ton of conversations and interviews with those folks who are asking for information and ideas around how they can pull off this or something similar. And I'm more than happy to help those folks. So that's my presentation. It's coming in fall of 2023 if we can get through these regulatory tangles. And we're very excited, and we think that this is going to be huge for kids in Cherry Creek. And to be quite honest, it's important because it will save lives. Thank you. I'm pretending there's applause in my head.
Oh yes, there's a pause. Oh my goodness, it takes my breath away.
Okay.
What a vision, and what an accomplishment, and what a need. This is, as you have said, Tony, this didn't happen just after COVID. I can remember back when I was still teaching and in Cherry Creek, and saying we need respite. We need a place for kids to be able to go for a temporary timeout. And this is remarkable. And so my hope is, again, that bureaucracy can stay out of it, and that you can continue to make sure that the needs of the students and the families are prioritized. So we'll open for questions in a few minutes. My heart is beating so fast listening to what you just shared, and knowing how many youth will be served and helped. So thank you.
And Nancy, I just wanted to respond to one thing. Representative Michelson, Janae, you're exactly right. This would have been a fantastic facility for your son.
I can think of so many kids that I taught that would have benefited. Yeah. Okay, take a deep breath, Nancy, because whew, that just really touches my heart and my soul. Thank you. Okay, so we will move right on to Michelle. Oh, are you ready for that, Michelle? Okay, Michelle Potterbaum. And she is the Community Relations Director for WellPower Denver Mental Health. She is also a Denver Public School Board member and a Colorado Black School Board Caucus member. She serves as the secretary for both organizations. This is one busy lady who is serving and has a real heart for our youth in Colorado as well. She specializes in addressing communication barriers, building relationships, and and forging unique ally partnerships. Michelle holds a Bachelor of Science degree in communication focused on intercultural communications and a master's degree in organization leadership, specializing in human resource performance. Director Quattlebaum is a champion for students and their families regarding access to quality educational options. While prioritizing mental health well-being, she is dedicated to creating and supporting community staff and student programs focused on increasing culturally responsive education and engagement. Representing the DPS shared core values, she believes in community of empowerment and collective accountability begins with collaboration. Love that word, collaboration, purpose, and diversity. You hit it right there, all three of those. Michelle is a non-Indigenous Colorado native, wife, and mother, and she is a new acquaintance to me, and I am thrilled to welcome you and hear from you today. So, Michelle, with that, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Senator Todd, and thank you for the invitation today. And I'll just share a little about my story and how I came to be at this place in my life with a true passion for mental health well-being, and how that ties to my educational advocacy work. And so it starts with just understanding growing up in my community and the challenges that arise, and how your mental health well-being was not something that you discussed. In my family, if someone sought help, they went on vacation. And so it wasn't talked about, or it was brushed away as, oh, such and such, you know them, that's just the way they are. And as I grew up and had some mental health well-being challenges personally, but knowing that there was a different way to reconcile myself with the community around me, I began to advocate for people to not be ashamed of needing help, that it takes a village to produce quality human beings. And then we segue into me becoming a parent, and just the different hurdles that my children had to overcome. And most notable, those that are familiar with me know that I've done extensive work at George Washington High School, born off of the pain and the struggles of my daughter, our oldest child, in dealing with transitioning into high school, in a program where she was one of few Black students, and some of the challenges that she experienced there. And my daughter had a love for education. And her freshman year of high school, we saw that that love of learning was evaporating, and just really trying to discover what was happening in her life, and then finding out the different traumas that she was experiencing and getting her the assistance that she needed, and then beginning my advocacy work in ensuring that all students, irregardless of their social economic status, of their parents or their family, their race, nationality, that they had access to quality education, and understanding that there are families out there that didn't know how to advocate for themselves, didn't understand that they could advocate for themselves and their students. And so I took the charge to do that advocacy work, not just for my children, but for all children. And that led me to realize we have a lot of trauma happening within our school buildings, and it's not necessarily intentional. And so working with Well Power and then being on the board of Denver Public Schools, it allowed me to marry two passions that I have. And so some of the work that I'm currently doing is I am working to bring mental health resources to Denver Public Schools in a different way. And that is being able to equip staff to have a better understanding of what mental health assistance can look like while taking care of themselves. So, Dr. Poole, I love the Traverse Academy. I do definitely want to talk to you about that at a later date. But I also think about there's a push right now for mental health and our children in the schools, which is needed, which needs to happen. But I also think that we cannot forget about the adults in the buildings. We also cannot forget about the families that the students go home to. And so some of the things that I'm working on is I constantly say, we're working really hard within DPS, and we partner, we in part partner with Well Power to bring clinical services to our students in a wide variety of ways. But we cannot work to get our children healthy and then send them home to unhealthy environments. And so I'm looking at ways to open up, and actually our community hubs now offer counseling, not just for our students, but for their families as well. So the community hubs within Denver Public Schools will not only work with the students, but they work with the families as well. So we're working on the entire unit and really truly providing support for the students, both in the building, in the community, and at home. And in addition, I'm working on a grant to bring mental health first aid to Denver Public Schools, where we will be able to train our staff. And that's not just the staff within the schools, that's staff even at central administration that supports our school employees, but train them in what does this look like? What could anxiety in an adult, in a student, what could that possibly look like? And going through some of those different clinical diagnoses. They will not be trained as clinicians, but they'll have a good insight as to what some mental health challenges, barriers, and obstacles could look like, and what they can do to assist in providing resources, and at the same time building in self-care, that in order to assist, you have to take care of yourself as well. And so that's just a little about what I'm doing right now. I've just completed my first year at Denver Public School Board of Directors. And I'm really looking forward to bringing in some comprehensive mental health tools and resources for the Denver community, and then hopefully expanding it throughout the state.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm going to invite Tony and Daphne, if you'll come back on the screen and unmute yourself. And I know that we have some questions to be posed for us. How fortunate we are as a state to have these three leaders that have just shared different perspectives, and and it's just a little kernel of what they're doing on a daily basis. And so I'm going to ask, I know there are questions in the chat room, and so let's see. Candace, there you go. If you want to pose the questions, and then we'll direct them to the different panelists.
Certainly. The first question is, explain the age of consent.
Okay.
So Daphne, Representative Michelson-Janae.
I will take that on. The age of consent law is a law that dictates at what age a child can have confidential counseling, confidential talk therapy. And in the law, it is written that the therapist is to encourage the relationship between parent and child, because this is a moment where the child is separating from the parent and needing confidentiality.
Thank you so much. The next question is, please elaborate on what twice exceptional means.
So
Tony.
Tony, you want to get it?
I think, either one of us can speak to that. We're lucky in Cherry Creek to have our director of Gifted and Talented actually speaks nationally on issues around twice exceptionality, and is a recognized expert. But a student who's twice exceptional is a student who is gifted in some manner academically, but also has an accompanying learning disability or mental health disability of some type. And so it's a very complex situation, because many times one or both of those things masks the other. So the disability can mask the giftedness, and the giftedness can mask the disability. And these students, they're very complex students, and it's complex to teach them, and it's certainly complex to parent them.
And I would just say,
if you want
that,
to jump in, yeah,
with my son, he was in the 98th and 99th percentile in certain areas, and he was in the 5th percentile for his learning disabilities. So very, very, very significant differences. And he has dysgraphia. So the reason he went to college for 2.5 years and got no credits is because he could learn, but he could not do the work. And if he was tested orally, he would have passed his classes, but he got F's in all his classes and refused to drop them because he really enjoyed going to class.
Representative Michelson-Janae, I've actually worked with a student very much like that. IQ of we can't find a top end of the IQ on this student. It's somewhere north of 145, but he tops out on all of the tests. But he cannot write. He cannot write. It just doesn't happen. And that, unfortunately, as you move higher in the educational world, especially up into college, they have less and less tolerance for disabilities, and they don't have to accommodate them, and many times they don't. It's tragic.
And Michelle, that kind of jumps back to your point of helping not only the student, but the whole family.
Right, exactly. I actually assisted a young man to graduate from high school during the pandemic, who was twice exceptional. And I would say that it going into sheltering in place really helped him because we had to think differently about educating and what testing looked like for him. And so we had to open up um, where he didn't write well, but he learned extremely well and fast. And so being able to have the option of orally giving a presentation or receiving more assistance in collecting his thoughts because we were virtual, he was able to graduate on time. And yes, it goes to when you have a twice exceptional student, families need to understand what that is and what that looks like. And then the school community needs to rally behind the student and have a real grounding, be very grounded in what that means. And we have to think differently about what education can look like for us. And that's when we get into equitable practices within education. And sometimes we just can't do it the way we've done it in the past, because we need to make sure that all students have access to the learning environment and the tools and the resources that they need to succeed.
I'm gonna jump in before I come back to Candace for another question, because I think one of the issues that this does face every district and every classroom is teacher preparation and making sure that teachers are in programs at the higher ed and working on how do you work with a diverse population, and you have 35 students in a classroom. You know,
Right.
I think those are the realities. And, you know, I don't want to go too far off the venue, but in terms of funding education, not only are we 42nd in mental health care, we're at 42nd in just plain paying for education in the state of Colorado. We are at crisis mode. We are at major crisis mode. So I'll step away and go back to you, Candace, with questions.
Senator Todd, if I could just jump in really quickly and piggyback on that comment. I won't complain about, well, I could complain about school funding, but I won't. You know, that we know and that the Gordian knot of Tabor and Gallagher and Amendment 23 really has created a funding issue in Colorado for everything, mental health and education included. There was a question that I answered in the chat, and I'm sorry I answered it and then it went away. But the question was, you know, if Cherry Creek, which is a wealthy district, is struggling like this, what are poorer districts going to do? And the answer that I threw back is that we're lucky in Cherry Creek that we have supportive voters. That's what saves us. No district in Colorado is wealthy. I think we need to change that narrative. If we're 46th in the nation in education funding, we do not have wealthy districts in Colorado. We all could use more funding to help kids. For those districts that don't have the resources, maybe because their voters don't or can't support a bond or a budget election, you know, what I really recommend is that, you know, that superintendent get on the phone, call the CEO of Children's Hospital, call the CEO of Centura Hospital, call the CEO of any local hospital or healthcare facility in the area and start talking partnerships. You just have to reach out and ask. You never know what could come out of it. And I think we just have to be creative.
Oh, go ahead, Representative.
Well, I was just going to say, Dr. Poole, your facility was my dream. I actually did talk to Children's Hospital about creating it I wanted to build it on Children's Hospital property so that it was easy for the therapists to get back and forth. But I'm beyond thrilled that this will exist here in Colorado for Colorado students. And since we have school choice, kids can place into your school.
Yes. Yeah, they would need to choice into the Cherry Creek School District. That's another one of those interestingly, that's some kind of licensing issue with children's, so they would have to be a student in Cherry Creek, but they can choice in Cherry Creek and then
Yeah.
access the facility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, please know that, Dr. Poole, we will be in conversation, because that is a dream of mine. How do we bring this to our students? So Denver Public Schools is very interested in being able to provide a facility in Denver as well for our students. Or I should say, I am interested in that, and willing to do the work. And I just wanted to say, when we talk about access and funding, I will say, as a board member, we do need more funding. Yes, we need to change the funding structure for our schools, because it impacts so many other areas, one in particular, mental health well-being. And how we can fund that, where all school districts are prioritizing mental health well-being, yet we're struggling with the funding for it.
And yet in Denver, I've never seen any issue that's gone before the voters that has failed. So Denver could do
Yep.
this.
Yes.
I'm recalling that the National Jewish Hospital has had a special school for very serious asthmatic and very serious pulmonary.
Mhm.
And why would we not treat mental health the same way we do physical health and needs? So Candace, I'll go back to you for questions. Sorry, it's so hard for me not to jump right in.
Next question, are colleges open to individual education plans for students, or do you have to find a college that offers such plans?
Yeah, most colleges, they do. They honor individual education plans. My son, he just graduated this past May from a school, Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and he worked in the writing lab as a tutor, and he worked with one of his college colleagues who was on an IEP.
So just for a technicality, though, it's the IEP, an actual IEP, like through IDEA, does end when you graduate from high school. What you need when you go to college is actually a 504 plan. And so you just have to know what to ask for. And a lot of parents don't realize that the IEP ends, and then you actually need a fresh round of educational testing to be able to take to the university, and then create a 504 plan, which adults can have under the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act. And then 504s actually are what colleges should follow, but don't always choose to follow.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification.
And I'll tell you, in my son's situation, he went to a private Jesuit college for the first year, and they did not care about any of his learning disabilities. They did not, they just failed him. And then he went to Metro, and Metro has a great access center that he went to and met with them to talk about his individual needs. But then certain professors follow, certain professors don't follow. And ultimately, he still ended up failing his classes. So, there are different needs for these kids, and I don't know where their place is. I wish he was still in high school so I could send him to Cherry Creek.
Okay, Candace, back to you.
Yes. This question actually is for Dr. Poole. How do you feel about the new behavioral health administration?
I don't know yet. BHA is new, and from what I understand, their role in licensing or working with facilities like this will be rolled in starting after July 1st, the timing of which scares me greatly as we try to open our facility in the fall. I have hope because I understand that Dr. Ron Lee Liao from Children's Hospital is on the BHA. So I'm hoping that that will be a friendly voice. But I mean, to be quite honest, regulatory agencies at this time, they scare me. They scare me. I don't think that I don't think they mean badly. I think they certainly serve a purpose, but we really need to think creatively to solve this crisis. This is not a simple solution. And I was asked by one of the interviews that I did. They said, do you feel like this is really the public schools' place to get involved in mental health? And I said, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I would have said no. But this crisis is so deep at this point that it's going to take everyone. It's going to take the legislature. It's going to take the public schools. It's going to take hospitals. It's going to take everyone to solve this crisis. And I hope that the BHA and these other agencies see that and can help us streamline and be able to partner and work together effectively.
And I will jump in and ask one additional question. And Daphna, you know where I'm coming from on this. The number of facilities that have been closed in the state of Colorado, the number of opportunities for time out facilities for children and for youth have been diminished. And the philosophy of not having residential services where it's not like a 1-hour session that is what the student needs. To me, it has been a great disservice to the communities. And so as a result of that, looking at what that role of the state and the mandates and all of the tanglements when facilities were closed and children were left at bay, going to Children's Hospital, terming out because of insurance, going home, turning around and having a revolving door of going back in, and no other resources. So Tony, when you said there are only 16 options for the entire state, that's crisis. And those were closed with nothing in place. So I'm hopeful also that the entanglement is not thwarting the success of this creative solution. There must be a question somewhere in there, so you can respond to that however you'd like.
The crisis is real, and our kids are paying the price for it. We're losing kids every day across this state. I see the question down here: do I have any remedies for the insurance issues that keep students from having enough time to complete their moderate or transitional health needs? And the reason that I bring that question back to the front is, Senator Todd, it relates to what you just said. Many of those facilities close down because they operate in the red all the time. The rules around Medicaid reimbursement continually change, and those reimbursements are very complex. Private insurers don't want to pay the cost for these types of treatments, whether it's residential or day treatment. And so, do I have an answer to that? No, not yet. That's going to be one of the challenges that we knew we would have going into this. And it's one of those things that makes it an exciting project, because we know there will be challenges and we have to overcome them. I think I threw this out to Children's Hospital, and it was kind of fun to see their reaction. But I would think between Cherry Creek Children's Hospital and the CU School of Psychiatry, we could put on some kind of fundraiser through our foundations, or do something to throw a giant, really fun party to raise funds for kids who need to complete this treatment and don't have the insurance or the Medicaid ability to do so. So I'm hoping that we can raise funds that way if need be. I'm hoping that we can work with these regulatory agencies to try to ease some of the strings that are attached so that we can make this model work.